Up until this point, we've been talking about subject and verb agreement, which is one thing we need to look for when dealing with any verb type question. Another thing we need to look at is verb tense. Tense deals with time, and at what point in time is something taking place. So our first example here, we have in 1776, America is declaring independence. In this case, we have a big clue about our time period, in 1776. If that is not happening in the present, and it's not, it's happening in the past, we cannot use a present tense verb with that phrase. Instead of saying in 1776, America is declaring independence, we would need to say America declared independence. In our next example, we have yet another pretty obvious time word that tells us when something is taking place. If we say next year, it has to be happening in the future. So instead of saying next year our team has won 30 games, we would want to say next year our team will win 30 games. Sometimes we're not going to have very obvious time words in the past or in the future, so what we need to do is look for other context clues in our sentence. Sometimes we're going to look for other verbs. These can be really helpful in determining when something is taking place. So in this example, we have Dave sees several museums when he went to Belgium. Since sees is underlined, that's the verb that we may need to change. Let's look for our other verb, went to Belgium, and figure out what tense it's in so that we can match sees to that tense. So went is past tense, which means we need to change sees into the past tense. So we would prefer to say Dave saw several museums when he went to Belgium. In our other example, we have Mrs. Jones made us sit in the corner whenever we are bad. So if made is underlined, once again, that's what we may need to change, and it needs to fit with the tense of our other verb are. Since are is a present tense verb, we need to make sure that made becomes present tense. So instead, we would say Mrs. Jones makes us sit in the corner whenever we are bad. Now, that was pretty doable. We have a single sentence with two different verbs in it, but sometimes you're going to have a situation where you don't have two verbs in the sentence. This means that you have to look around that sentence for more context. Usually you're going to be looking for other verbs in the rest of the paragraph that comes before or after your underlined verb. In this case, we're dealing with, finally, the waiter took their orders. Now, by itself, that sentence would maybe be fine. We have no other information about what tense we're dealing with. But in the context of the rest of this paragraph, we have several other verbs, and they are all present tense. The restaurant workers always follow the same routine. First, the hostess shows the guests to their table. Then the chef comes out and tells them about the specials. Those are all present tense verbs, so we can't say, finally the waiter took their orders, because that would be in the past. Instead, we need to say, finally the waiter takes their orders. This way, everything matches. Now, we have different forms of tenses, and we need to keep an eye out for what forms we're talking about. What you'll see most commonly are present and past tense, something either happening right now or happening just in the past. Here's an example of a sentence in what's called the simple past. Bob was class president in 2006. We have a specific date that tells us we are talking about the past. So our verb was is just going to be the simple past. But we may have a situation where someone started being the class president in the past and is continuing to be the class president currently. The present perfect would be a situation where something starts in the past and continues through to the present. This example below, Bob has been class president since 2006, tells us that Bob started being the class president in 2006, but is continuing to currently be the class president. Another type of unusual tense is the past perfect tense. In this example, Lucas had read the book before he saw the film adaptation. We have before he saw, which tells us that one thing is happening before another. And in this case, we're going to say Lucas had read the book before he saw the film adaptation. Had read is a combination of the word had and read. And that tells us that that happened in the past before he did his next action, which was seeing the film adaptation. So as you can see in this example, our past perfect tense is made up of two verbs: had read the book before he saw the film adaptation. When you see these unusual perfect tense verbs, they're typically going to be a combination of two different verbs. So keep an eye out for that on the test, and remember that it's not going to be the most common verb type you're dealing with. Usually you're looking for the simple past, simple present, or simple future. One word that you may see showing up on the test is would. It has three typical uses. First of all, we have the past form of will. So Dave told Jennifer that he would go to the store. The past form of saying, I will go to the store. The second way that we can use this word is for habitual actions in the past, things that happened commonly or frequently. When he was a child, Dave would go to the park every Saturday. We can see it was a common event every Saturday, so we would say he would go to the park. The third use for would is in conditional sentences. You may typically think of conditional sentences as if this, then that, and we can also use that with our form of would. In our first example, we're talking about the future. If you ask me to the dance, I will go with you. In the second, if you asked me to the dance, I would go with you. That's our past version of would. In our third example, we have the conditional. If you had asked me to the dance, I would have gone with you.